All right. Welcome, everybody, to Equally Heard, Episode 3. My name is Mark Fleming, and today I am with Andy. Andy, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm an actor, advocate. I work in policy for the East Coast, for DC. And yeah, I just like to do a little bit of everything because I get bored very easily. So I like to keep myself busy. I'm one of those people that only sleeps about 5 hours a night. And so I'm constantly doing something. So yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell. But you can ask me anything you want. I'm not shy at all. So go ahead.
Awesome, awesome. That's quite a bit of things. Out of all those amazing things, what would you say is the one thing you've enjoyed the most?
I really like advocating for people with disabilities. I really there's something about having people not having voices that really makes me passionate about helping them move forward in their own experience, whatever that is, right? And so in everything that I do, I always bring the advocate with me, right? I don't hold back. So in acting and policy, in just all the things that I do, I always bring my advocacy lens to it.
I completely get that. That's kind of what I do. I don't say that I'm an advocate because my day job is a personal trainer, and so I get to advocate for my clients and all that stuff. So that's really good to hear someone else say something like that. What would you say is your main area of focus with your advocacy?
Probably diversity and inclusion. I have a saying that I tell people: diversity and inclusion is a way of life. It's not just a sexy term that we get to use on PowerPoints and think that we're like woke or awake. But I'm for your audience that probably doesn't know, I'm Latino and LGBTQ, and disabled. So that's a lot of check boxes that people like to say that I'm in, but I always like to think about it as like my lived experience is an example for others to either follow or move forward, and I really so yeah, diversity and inclusion is a way of life for me. It's not just words that I get to say and think that I'm cool because I use them a lot.
Well, that's really great. Yeah, that's a lot of check marks and doing as much as you're doing. That's really impressive because there's a lot of barriers on at each of those check marks.
Right.
Um, because I know as a cis white male, I don't have a lot of those barriers, and so my main goal is to use my platforms to try to bring others with me whenever possible because I know that's um, the best thing I can do. You know, talking about policy, what would be the immediate step or action that we can take, like tomorrow, that can help people with disabilities?
Well, I think that overall, making sure that your policies in whatever area that you work in, right? You work in fitness, right? So let's take that for example, right? Is your gym accessible to everybody with a disability? And if it's not, what is one thing you could do to make it accessible, right? So like in every aspect, I think accessibility is at the core, right? um, and so everything that I do in my policy work, I think, is the language accessible to people that don't know this policy, right? Are there less barriers in the community for for these people to access what the services that I'm working with. So I think accessibility is one of the biggest policy keys that people need to think about in whatever they're doing, right? So uh, I'm always I'm sort of frustrated with people because they look at us as like the other, right? If you have a physical disability or even a cognitive disability, they think, oh, those poor disabled folk, let me help them. And I always tell people, you know what? No, I'm disabled, but guess what? One day you might be too. And yeah, I wouldn't want people to look at you this way. So why are you looking at me this way? Right? So I think accessibility is the biggest thing we can do to move the needle.
Yeah, definitely. I was fortunate to have a place that had all the check marks for accessibility in my mind, especially with autism. That was kind of what I started off with. So making sure that it was safe for individuals with autism and sensory issues was my biggest point. But my sister works in architecture, so that's like one of the things that she talks with managers and owners every day is, hey, we can't do this here because a person in a wheelchair can't go through, you know, and so it's really cool to see that with her. Um, so going back to being in the entertainment industry, do you have any advice for any other person with disability trying to get into that industry?
I would say everybody is unique, right? Like, I think that now we're at an interesting time in the entertainment industry where casting directors and media at large is looking for different and unique, right? In a good way, not in a patronizing way. So I think if any of your viewers are looking to get into modeling or acting or public speaking, even what you're doing, you just be unique, have an authentic voice, tell your own story, don't try to be somebody else. I think a lot of times with people with disabilities and everybody, regardless of disability or not, we wear masks, not the mask we have to wear when we're outside, but mask to kind of shield us from perception and outside sources. So I would say be unique. And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of study and it takes classes and it takes dedication. Because let me tell you, even though the industry is opening up, it's a very narrow pathway for success in the entertainment industry. It's like it's open, but it's just a crack. It's not what do they call that? I don't know. I'm trying to think of the right word, but a waterfall. It's a crack in a dam and not like a full like explosion of diversity in the entertainment industry. But if you want to do it, go for it and be authentically yourself.
I think that's great advice. Unfortunately, I don't have any passion to go into that work.
It's a
Can't
lot. Yeah.
sing and I'm not I don't have the voice for it or anything. I grew up knowing all that. Um, so what would you consider is your kind of biggest strength attribute, like honesty or being bold? What would you say is?
I think honestly, it's my frankness, right? It's my genuineness. I come from a very diverse background, and I grew up in foster care, and so I can get along with anyone from any side of the political spectrum and anyone from sort of any background because I use my genuineness and my authenticity to communicate with them, right? I think it goes back to being you. um, if you're genuine, people respect that. Even if they don't agree with who you are in that moment, they see that you're genuine and they're intrigued by it. So I think that that's a big, my big, I guess, my one big attribute that I can share with everyone is my genuineness.
I can definitely tell that through this interview, and I appreciate you being open with me and the few followers I have. Um, Now to the nit and gritty. Can you tell us what physical education was like for you growing up?
Oh, horrible. Horrible. I hated gym. I hated any kind of physical activity in front of other people when I was in school because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything the way that they were doing it, right? And it was very interesting because I had physical therapy while I was going to high school and middle school. So I had to watch other people and sit at the sidelines while people were playing baseball and all these sports, and then I had to go and work myself out physically to maintain a certain level of physical mobility, but I never felt like I belonged right in that community of young people because uh, you're you're judged by what you can do physically when you're a young person, right? And if you can't do it, you're kind of out of the loop. You're not in the popular crowd. You're not with the cool kids. You're not with the jocks. You're not with any of those people. And I don't care what anybody says, when you're in that space, when you're a teenager, you want to belong. You want to feel like you're part of something. And so it was just really tough. It was really tough. And again, teachers and educators, now it's a little better, but they didn't know how to do PE or physical education for physical disability or even cognitive disability. That wasn't on their radar, and so it was a challenge, definitely.
Yeah, I get that. One of the reasons why I wanted to ask these kind of questions for physical education is that I was tabling an event and a parent came up to me and said, "My kid goes to the school and the kids in wheelchairs don't do any physical activity." And my jaw just dropped because I just spent 10 years in college learning about how to adapt for individuals with disabilities in that setting. And to me, it was just like, seriously, if someone can't use a part of their body, you can still use the other parts. There's always ways you can move. Um,
I
and I think it,
adapted. Yeah, I adapted. I actually took physical education on my own, not for school, but I took self-defense, and I was a swimmer, and I did a little bit of bodybuilding when I was younger and gymnastics because I wanted to be physical. Even though my body was limited, I still wanted my upper body and my arms and everything to have a place, and feel like a sense of pride, I guess, or like I don't know, like beauty, right? Like when we think of physical people, we look at their bodies and say like, wow, they have a nice body. I wanted a little bit of that for myself.
I get that, and I'm glad you were able to find your niches within the fitness realm because I know how daunting that can be when there's not too many people to look up to understand how to go about it and everything like that. Because I mean, we don't even have many college sports for individuals with in wheelchairs and
No.
stuff like that. So on that note, are you still physically active today?
Not as much as I should be. As I've grown into my adulthood, I'm still physically active. I go to the gym, I do yoga, I go swimming occasionally, but I used to work out 3 times a week, eat properly, do all that, and then as soon as I started working, several years ago. It just kind of, it's fluctuating, right? There'll
Mhm.
be moments where like I'll be like, okay, I'm gaining too much weight, so now I have to work out, right? But I'm definitely not as consistent as I want to be. I do have a bit of a routine, but I definitely need to get better. Yeah. You're my motivation. You're my motivation for doing that, because I'm like, okay, I have to do something about this now.
Yeah, yeah, I get that quite a bit. One funny story about grad school is that when one of my professors told me, "Hey, when you tell people you're a personal trainer or you're in exercise science, the first thing they're going to tell you is what their exercise routine is, if they're doing exercise, whether or not, like it's almost like a confession, that it's like, preacher or whatever, this is what I've been doing." And it was just funny. But
You're a physical.
time
You're like a priest. You're a fitness priest.
almost,
Yeah,
because it's that kind of guilt, like, oh no, if I'm not doing anything, they're gonna judge me. When in all reality, I'm just like, look, as long as you're happy and being healthy, that's
yeah,
the important thing. And so I'm
yeah,
glad that you're you're still working on that balance, but
yeah,
you know that in the back of your head that you're getting some stuff done, and that's great. And to be honest, you're doing a lot more for the individuals coming up, with all the work you're doing, and to some point that's almost more important, in some aspect, than being completely buff and all that stuff. So i'm glad uh, I'm glad you're being you, authentically you, and I really appreciate you coming on, today, because scheduling was a little off, but I'm
yeah,
glad we finally found a time, and
yeah.
I I am uh, just so proud to see all the work you do, and keep it up.
Great. And if there's anything else that I can do for you, like blast this out to my audience, I'll definitely share the link and put it on my YouTube so other people can find out about you. Where are you located? So if people want to know about you, what state are you in? I don't even know that.
Yeah, I'm in Tampa, Florida,
Oh, great.
so
Yeah.
um,
No, no, that's great. I have a bunch of people with disabilities that are in that area. So if you ever need more guests or more people, let me know because I can.
I'm always looking for more people, because I
Okay,
don't
great.
want this to just be autism. I want to be all disabilities, because I want people to hear stories like yours,
Hmm.
um, because people don't realize the lack of education for individuals with disabilities on all levels when it comes to physical education. Because obviously, if there was, I wouldn't be needed. That's why I started what I'm doing, is that there was an activity gap, and that doesn't need to happen. We're in 2020, we
Yeah.
need to move things along a little bit better.
And the one thing I will say before we end is that when you have a physical disability like mine, people are always saying, "Oh, that last 5 pounds or that 5 pounds," but when you have a physical disability and your body's disproportionate, right? Because your legs are skinnier than the rest of your body, when you gain 5 pounds or 10 pounds, it really impacts your mobility. So I think it's really important for people to know that it's not just a vanity thing and it's not just a fitness thing. It's an overall well being mobility thing. Like gaining weight could make you even more disabled if you're already sitting down 24 hours a day. So that's the one thing I would want your viewers to keep in mind. There's so many pieces to it.
Yeah, that's a great point. So I'm gonna end the recording here.
Awesome.